Good morning, everybody. An athlete may seem like the picture of health to most people, but even the fittest athlete can be at risk for nutrient deficiencies. Welcome to the Performance Prescription Lab podcast with Neil Hum and Jess. And today we will dive into some of the top functional nutrients often depleted in athletes. A well understood and often celebrated aspect of human physiology is that people who engage in strenuous activity require more macronutrients, meaning carbohydrates, proteins, and fat to sustain their energy. But what about micronutrient needs? That is, do people who engage in strenuous physical activity, such as endurance athletes and even weekend warriors, do they require more vitamins and minerals to perform and recover optimally? Or we can ask this question from a different angle. Do athletes really need to take micronutrient supplements?
Jess, there's a joint position from Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, Dietitians of Canada, and the American College of Sports Medicine that micronutrient supplements are unnecessary for athletes who consume a diet providing high energy availability from a variety of nutrient-dense foods. But that vitamin and mineral supplements may be necessary in athletes who consume suboptimal amounts of micronutrients in various backgrounds and in many ways, which we are going to explain. So we can say athletes need to take micronutrient supplements when necessary. And
Yes.
there is evidence for that.
Yeah, there is evidence that vitamin and mineral deficiencies have a vast effect on an athlete's physical abilities and that their performance usually improves once the deficiency is corrected. I know for me, it happened with vitamin D, and I felt so much better when I realized what was going on. Poor vitamin and mineral status can lead to an increased risk of fractures, both cognitive and physical health and performance in athletes, particularly female athletes. So, Neilham, before we start going through each nutrient, let's continue with the tradition and start with a 101 introductory class on this topic. So, can you explain what is leakier gut and why it's related to nutrient depletions in athletes?
Sure, that's the foundation, so it's important to explain.
Yeah. Especially because
So,
our gut is so important
yeah,
and so overlooked, and it's how we absorb everything.
exactly. If we are speaking about nutrients, we have to talk about our gastrointestinal tract and compliance anyway. So, gastrointestinal, I'm going to refer this as GI complaints from now on. GI complaints in athletes can include vomiting, diarrhea, cramping, bloating, or abdominal pain, and everything in between. These are very common during training and competitions, but we should understand why it's happening. Athletes work hard to fine-tune their machine of a body, so they should be stronger than the average population, right? It is exactly because of the hard work they put into their goals that makes them more susceptible to gut issues. Intense exercise and dehydration influence muscle glycogen depletion, and this puts the athlete at risk for reduced blood flow to the intestines. When you're exercising, your blood flows to your skeletal muscle, your brain, heart, lungs, more than your stomach and intestines, because your muscle, brain, heart, and lung needs more energy, more glucose, more oxygen
Oh.
during exercise. Also, the stress of the heat and oxidative damage during exercise, this particularly happens in high intensity exercise, disrupts the tight junctions in your gut lining. Your intestines have tight junctions that keep anything harmful that you ingest from entering directly into your bloodstream. So it's like a barrier, it's a natural barrier. In fact, most of our immune system is located in our gut because by eating, we constantly introduce foreign material into our system through the GI tract. The term leaky gut describes one with increased permeability, therefore decreased protection, if you want to describe it that way. due to inflammation and damage. So a leaky gut means lost nutrients due to impaired absorption, increased immune activation, and increased inflammation, which all lead to, you will guess it, a decreased performance. Hope this makes sense on why we need to pay attention to the gut health. And now we know one of the main causes of the nutrient depletion athletes. This is leaky gut. And then I'm going to hand over to Jess now to dive into a little background on the common nutrients and further background on this.
Yeah. Thank you. No, that's super helpful. I always, I remember, I guess I didn't realize in school when I started learning about like basic human biology that our gut was really just all these little column cells like stuck next to each other, and that there could become spaces in between them. And I remember thinking it was just a tube and not all these little columns that are made up of tight junctions. So I think that's super helpful for people to understand that those can get spacey and let stuff, you not absorb as well.
Yeah.
But today we're going to look at the common nutrient depletions, or for some people, just suboptimal levels for athletes. And so we're going to discuss the 5 top ones, and those include calcium, vitamin D, as in dog, iron, magnesium, and zinc. You could probably also add in there sodium and potassium, which are AKA kind of what we call electrolytes as a group. But there could be a whole episode in this and dealing with hydration and electrolytes. So please note, athletes, that you are at higher risk for electrolyte depletion than the general population. We are not discussing that in this episode, but it is something you need to be aware of, and we will dive into it in the future. But today we're going to focus on the 5 nutrients of calcium, vitamin D, iron, magnesium, and zinc. So Nilham?
Jess, I invite female athletes to pay extra attention to this episode, particularly, especially those struggling with more injuries or slower times in their performance. From a recent study, which reviewed 42 studies that assessed the effect of deficits in calories, protein, minerals, vitamins on performance, researchers found that female athletes were much more susceptible to iron, calcium, and vitamin D deficiencies than their male counterparts.
Wow.
These athletes also need to be aware of greater need for magnesium, folic acid, and vitamin B12, according to the researchers. Of course, this is for all athletes, but particularly these micronutrients we are going to focus on. These are iron, calcium, vitamin D is more should be more focused for female athletes. So I'm gonna invite you to start with our first functional nutrient we often see depleted in athletes, Jess.
Calcium will be number 1 on our list. So calcium is one of those underappreciated workhorses in the body. Dietary calcium intake is often considered to promote bone health, which probably all of us know, but it's also included in muscle contractions and subsequently heartbeat regulation, nerve impulse conduction, regulation of blood pressure, water balance, and a whole bunch of other functions. But we're going to talk a little bit about calcium in respect to bone, because that is one big thing with athletes and stress fractures or bone injuries. So calcium is integral in bone remodeling. That is, bones are constantly in this process of forming and breaking down and forming and breaking down. Whether the objective is to maximize and to obtain peak bone mass during childhood and early adolescence, which most of us find that our peak bone mass happens around age 20 to 25. After that, we're just trying to maintain and prevent bone loss as we age. Dietary calcium throughout our life is a key factor. So the recommended daily intake of calcium varies depending on age and sex. And it usually ranges between 1,000 and 1,300 milligrams per day. And what we can find is that most people don't nearly get enough. While there's no short-term obvious symptoms of calcium deficiency, this is probably the biggest reason we see that people underconsume is because they don't know that they're not getting enough. And there's not a problem that shows up until you have a bone injury or maybe a fracture. I also want people to consider with the changing in eating habits, many people are moving to dairy free options. And dairy obviously is the largest source of calcium in our diet. So I recommend that most people, if you're dairy free, to use a calcium calculator or a food tracking app. You can just type in calcium calculator on the internet, and there will be a myriad of places to put in your daily food intake, or you can use a food tracking app that will help track the micronutrients. And this will help determine if you're getting enough calcium in your diet. I will say in the end, most non dairy diets will need additional supplementation. Also, athletes, especially those doing high intensity or long workouts, really hot environments, or even those that sweat a lot, can increase your calcium excretion, meaning it's coming out of your body and that you need more calcium than non-athletes. The other reasons that athletes need to look closer at their diet and supplementation, besides what I've mentioned already, is if your total caloric intake is low, such as dieting, if you're controlling calories for like a weight class or aesthetic sport, if you're prone to heavy sweating, if you're on a vegetarian diet that has limited calcium rich foods, or if you're in a high intensity phase without the proper tapering, all of these can be reasons for calcium depletion. While we talk about supplements, Neilham and I are both big proponents of food first. So, dietary supplements that are dietary sources of calcium can include dark green leafy vegetables, including like something like bok choy, kale, stuff like that. Some fruits, nuts, seeds, beans, fish with bones, such as sardines. They can give you plenty of calcium, also along with any dairy products. And vegans, we can't forget you. Don't despair. There are plenty of non-animal sources of calcium. So again, please do a calcium calculator and make sure that you're getting enough. I like to tell patients or clients to look at trying to get about 2 to 3 non-dairy sources of calcium in your diet every day. So, big background on calcium. Neilham, do you have some feedback on calcium?
Yeah, some people believe that if some of a nutrient is good,
Yeah.
then getting a lot more must be really great. Uh, is this applicable for calcium as well?
Good, very good question. I think most of our society is in more is always better phase. And for calcium, it's really important to know that there is an inverse relationship that exists between
Mhm.
calcium intake and the calcium absorption. So as you take more calcium in, you absorb less of it. So calcium absorption is roughly 45% when you intake about 200 milligrams per day, but it declines to 28% if you take 1,000 milligram dose, and 15% when you're at 2,000 milligrams per dose or per day. So this is a case of diminishing returns. I like to tell patients that if you're going to take a calcium supplement, your body will do much better if you space that into 2 or 3 doses per day instead of taking all of the 1,200 or 1,300 milligrams at once, because you're not going to be able to absorb it all.
Okay, great.
There,
Less is
yeah,
more.
less is more here. Um, there is an upper limit for calcium most adults, and that's 2,500 milligrams per day. Anything above this could raise the risk for hypercalcemia, which increases your chance of heart problems. Also, for some people, taking large amounts of calcium can raise the likelihood of developing painful kidney stones, which nobody wants. My husband has them, and yeah, they're painful, and I feel bad for him. So, definitely do look at how much calcium you are intaking. Um, so our next nutrient, now that we've kind of covered calcium, is vitamin D, and they do have a great relationship together. You need vitamin D for calcium absorption, among many other roles. So being short on either one can have a big impact. So I'm going to let Neilhelm explain all this to you.
Perfect. Vitamin D is my sunshine vitamin.
Yes.
Really like it. Really important. I favor it not just because of the fact that I like it, but it's really, really important, and because it has critical roles in our body, from mood disorders to weight management and hormone synthesis to maintaining a healthy immune system and much more. So one of the goats in our body,
Yes.
I must say. And it may act as a hormone as well according to its properties. So there are many research mentioning vitamin D or active vitamin D as a hormone.
Yeah.
The primary source is from sun exposure, but some come from our food as well. One study showed that 77% of the general population is deficient, so it's a lot.
Wow. It's
Uh,
everybody. Get
exactly.
outside more.
It's almost everybody. And let's focus on athletes here, uh, especially athletes who train indoors or in colder climates are especially at risk for deficiency, like dancers and gymnasts, or, for example, those who live in Colorado or Canada or North Europe, for example.
Yeah.
But even if you live in sunny Florida, like Jess, or you train outside,
Like you.
you can still have low vitamin D levels. I live in a country where it's 300 to 340 days sunny, and guess what? I just get my blood tested. I'm still deficient.
Oh no.
Exactly. And athletes can also become deficient in vitamin D because they wear too much sunscreen, for example, during sun. That's probably the case for me. Or clothing that blocks the sun, making them unable to convert vitamin D from sunlight to an active form in their body, because they don't eat foods with vitamin D, such as milk or eggs. Here's a fun fact: you have to have good liver and kidney functions for your body to convert vitamin D from sun exposure into a biologically active form. You can also have genetic differences that make you convert either more slowly or faster.
Hmm.
Your vitamin D levels can be tested through a blood test, but levels vary throughout the year depending on where you live. We recommend late winter or early spring because it's going to be the lowest.
Yep.
Of course, again, depending on where you live. But as an important fact, most labs will tell you that 30 nanomole per liter, 25 hydroxyvitamin D, this is the active form, and this is what you get tested in your blood tests. 30 should be a normal level, but for athletes, optimal level is going to be above 50 nanomoles per liter. So this is what we target for athletes. And studies suggest that maintaining adequate vitamin D levels in athletes is necessary for fracture prevention, avoiding total body inflammation, ensuring muscle functions well, ensuring immune status as well, and again, it may help in recovery from injuries. Our muscle cells have vitamin D receptors. There is some research that link low vitamin D levels to muscle weakness and improvement in short-term sprint time with supplementation compared to placebo. And foods are generally low in vitamin D. Again, if we are speaking about food first perspective. So in that case, a supplement may be useful to help improve your levels and to improve your vitamin D levels, because we mentioned that you're going to get it from sun exposure. Spend 10 to 20 minutes daily exposure to sun, direct sunlight, usually first thing in the morning. And with winter approaching, I recommend that time should be increased, the amount that you spend, especially if you live in colder climates.
Yeah.
And let's look at the vitamin D supplements. We usually recommend vitamin D3 form or cholecalciferol combined with vitamin K2. Vitamin D3 ensures that calcium is absorbed easily, and K2 activates the protein, which is called osteocalcin, which integrates calcium into bone. So if you want your bones to be stronger, again, vitamin K2 is essential. If you're vegan or looking for a plant-based option, then we are going to recommend vitamin D2 supplements called ergocholecalciferol. This is going to be your answer in that case. And also it's important to note that your body needs magnesium in assisting the conversion to vitamin D into its active form, 25-hydroxyvitamin D. And having said that, you might have already guessed what will be our next nutrients. Over to you, Jess.
Magnesium.
There you go.
Well linked there, to get these two. Actually, all three. They're probably the first, second, and third place if you had to put them on a medal stand of supplements for athletes. But magnesium, I think, is one of the most commonly lacking micronutrients, with roughly about 2/3 of, at least the data I've seen, of Americans failing to consume the recommended daily intake. Most of our population is deficient. Some of it is due to factors that are out of our control, such as depletion of the nutrients in the soil, and therefore a decrease in the quality and quantity of magnesium in our crops. It also has to do with the highly processing of foods these days. But there's many reasons that we just don't have as much magnesium in our food sources. Athletes are also, on top of having decreased quality in our food, athletes are also at risk, especially because of excess sweating, high training volumes, and stress. And you'll see how all three of these play a role in magnesium depletion. Insufficient magnesium intake among athletes is very concerning, given that the high physical demands of training and competition appear to increase magnesium losses. One of the potential consequences of having low magnesium as an athlete is increased muscle damage. This mineral, I would say, is an all-star player. It is required in over 300 metabolic processes in the body, and it influences several different organ systems, including the cardiovascular, nervous system, and endocrine system. Other people will call this the relaxation mineral because it does help your muscles relax after a hard workout, while others use it for high blood pressure, to help with sleep, improve immune function, blood sugar regulation, and energy production, to name a few.
Jess, I really like you refer me to as an all-star player. And one of my Instagram posts, I called magnesium as the GOAT.
Oh, yeah.
Greatest of all times. Like Messi, Nadal, Serena Williams. It's truly a GOAT. It's an all-star. I completely agree on that.
Yeah, I think most people underestimate the impact of a simple micronutrient.
Yeah.
And I think with just how our society is today, it can't help but to try adding it and seeing how you feel, because it definitely can make an impact as an athlete, and I think just in the general population.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely the GOAT. I'm going to go with magnesium is the GOAT. So it gets first place. Um, some studies actually say athletes even consume, they're already starting at a negative because they consume 60 to 75% below the recommended daily intake of magnesium. And due to the increased production of sweat and urine during training and competition, plus we can't overlook the physical demands on the muscles and the action of cortisol, athletes experience magnesium losses of up to 20%. So this combination of the two is putting them at greater risk for magnesium deficiency or suboptimal levels. Athletes who are particularly vulnerable to magnesium deficiency include those who cut calories for weight loss purposes, practice restrictive eating, maybe very limited diets without a wide variety, or they fail to consume the daily vitamin and mineral requirements. Research suggests that athletes with low magnesium are not only at increased risk of muscle damage while exercising, they also have a reduced ability to recover. And as we've talked about in multiple episodes before, recovery is critical to becoming a better athlete and being able to keep your longevity in sport. So if you have questions about recovery, we do have 2 episodes already released on recovery. Moderate exercise places a healthy amount of stress on the body, which in turn causes a temporary increase in inflammation. So, this is good. Although inflammation caused by exercise is part of the body's natural response, competitive athletes or people who engage in vigorous activity or training often push themselves too much. This may be the people that are training 7 days a week or 6 days a week, multiple sessions a day, or athletes that do multiple sports or train for long periods. While it's great to go hard, it's important to take note that strenuous activity can lead to chronic inflammation, which is bad, muscle damage, and all of this can negatively impact your recovery, your energy levels, and your mood. Research shows that low magnesium status may be associated with the excess production of CRP, which is a protein made by your liver and sent into your bloodstream in response to physical damage. Production of CRP is part of the natural immune response to damage and is not a harmful substance per se. However, it's thought that excess or chronic production of CRP may negatively affect even your cellular health. I found that super interesting. Fortunately, a recent meta-analysis reported that magnesium supplement lowers CRP levels. Recent trials even suggest that supplementing with magnesium may help safeguard against muscle damage caused by extensive training and competition.
It is really, really important to manage CRP levels, and that's, I think, one of the most strongest benefit of magnesium, in my opinion. And there is more to magnesium here.
I know. There's so much. I feel like we probably could have done a whole episode just on magnesium. I mean, the talk about and people don't realize how it plays a role in cortisol and stress. So just the everyday person stressed in life is going to be low in magnesium. If you take certain medications, which we really didn't touch on, those can deplete magnesium. I mean, it's the GOAT. I'll go with you, Nilham.
There is more to magnesium, and maybe we can even record one entire episode about that. But I can share some of its other benefits of supplementation, about promoting strength and even influencing testosterone levels. And this can be also important for strength athletes. And other than that, it has also been noted that magnesium enhances peak oxygen uptake, total work output. It improves cardiovascular efficiency, and it also buffers lactic acid. By many, it has been called the relaxation mineral, helping muscles relax after a hard workout. Looking at a recent study from 2019, magnesium supplementation influences the development of muscle damage in professional cyclists. This study looked at participants competing in a 21-day cycling race. I don't know if this is the Tour de France. Looks like Tour de France to me. But it says 21-day cycling race. And they had 2 groups split it into 2. One group received 400 milligrams of magnesium supplemented with... one group supplemented with 400 milligrams of magnesium during the 3-week competition, and one did not. And at the end of the race, the athletes who supplemented with magnesium had less muscle damage than the ones who didn't. And this is really important. Wow. And as expected, blood magnesium levels decreased for both groups during the race. However, compared to the control group, the athletes that were supplemented with magnesium had significantly higher blood magnesium levels. So this shows the supplements work. And this trial suggests that having higher blood magnesium levels during competition may protect muscles during vigorous exercise. So it's a really factual, important study here. And we have received probably this question, I don't know, 1,000 times, and we love to answer that. I bet you receive these questions as much as I did. And the question is, which magnesium should I be using? Because there are plenty of options in the market. What's your take on this?
Oh my gracious. It is a question I get very frequently. It's something that, as having not studied this and really understanding it, I can see how it's so overwhelming to the consumer to try and figure out which magnesium to take, how much to take, which is the best one. Because if you go to a shelf, there's all different types of magnesium. And sometimes the front of the bottles even just say magnesium. And it's not till you like turn over the label do you figure out what form of magnesium is actually in the bottle. And we're going to kind of discuss some of the most common forms here in a second. But it's just important to know that each type of magnesium has different benefits and different drawbacks. So, you definitely, before just pulling one off the shelf, definitely speak to a sports pharmacist or your pharmacist healthcare provider to determine which one may be the best based on the symptoms you're having or the reason you're taking it. So I think the first one we need to start with is magnesium citrate. This is the one I feel like can cause a little bit of problems for athletes if you start with this one. So magnesium citrate is often used to improve your digestion. So if you're feeling a little backed up, let's say,
Mhm.
this is the type of magnesium that's bound to citric acid, and it causes a laxative effect. So for athletes, definitely not my first choice. And if you do take magnesium citrate, always, always, always start with a low dose and build up, because it can definitely leave you stuck at home for the next day if you take too much.
Oh no, yeah, that's an side effect that athletes wouldn't want to experience.
No, definitely not. So, definitely magnesium citrate is not going to be our first choice for athletes unless you're having some GI kind of constipation issues, and we that would be kind of some nuances to work with a sports pharmacist on. I think the next one, and I'm going to go with, I know this is one of my probably my top recommended one. I don't know about you, Nilham, but magnesium glycinate, or we have some in the US, magnesium bisglycinate. But this is really good at improving sleep. It's probably, I would say, my go to about 90% of the time of recommended magnesium form. It's really well absorbed. Um, and it also has a calming effect, and it doesn't have a GI effect. So great for athletes. So magnesium glycinate is bound to the amino acid glycine, which increases the bioavailability. Like I said, you get more of the magnesium absorbed, and glycine has a calming effect. So it can be used for relaxation. It can help with sleep quality and relieve stress. So is this one of your go-tos too, Nilham?
It is athletes having sleep problems due to many factors.
Yeah.
This is also my go-to supplement, and that
Yeah,
is like a many birds at one stone.
I
No
like
aren't here.
it. The next one I'm going to kind of touch on is going to be magnesium oxide. And this is probably one of the most common tablets you're going to see on the market. It's really common, but it's also really cheap. Um, it is not very well absorbed, and so I don't recommend this tablet as a supplement hardly at all. It can be used as a liquid um, to treat heartburn, and so when it's bound with water to make magnesium hydroxide, it can help alleviate heartburn and constipation. So the most common product you'll see of magnesium oxide is going to be the liquid milk of magnesia, which can help again with heartburn and kind of GI effects. But as a supplement to increase your magnesium levels, or if you're training and you're having muscle damage or you're having trouble sleeping, definitely not my go-to because of the poor availability. I know it's maybe the cheapest on the market, but you get what you pay for, and you're probably not going to get the effect of the magnesium that you're looking for.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Next is going to be magnesium chloride. So this one is often used to kind of soothe skin issues. And not all magnesium pills or magnesium supplements come in a pill form. Magnesium chloride can be absorbed through the skin in several ways. And this is usually seen as like a magnesium oil, which is usually magnesium chloride flakes mixed with like a water or an oil-based supplement or oil-based transfer liquid. And this one is great for direct application to like muscle spasms or muscle cramps. Um, a lot of people, like if you get Charlie horses at night, I would usually recommend keeping like a magnesium chloride. Either I have seen them as foams, sprays, oils, and you can spray it directly on the muscle and help with it relaxing. It can also be used for like dermatitis, eczema, and acne. But it is one of the ones I do like just to keep around. It's a good one to keep in kind of like next to your bed. Next, while we're kind of on the subject of causing of like muscle spasms or relaxation, magnesium sulfate. So this one is great to relieve muscle aches. And magnesium sulfate is probably something you already have and you might not know it. It is commonly known as Epsom salts. And when I learned that, I remember I was like, oh my gosh, I'm such an idiot. I had no idea what Epsom salts were when I was using
Yes.
them. I would like in college, like soak in and like, especially after preseason, like soak in Epsom salt baths because that's so great for like muscle soreness, tights, achiness, pain, stuff like that. Um, and so it helps because you're sitting in the back, your muscles are just soaking it in through your skin and you're getting that magnesium directly to your muscles. But I had no idea that's what Epsom salt was. So I felt like an idiot when I found that.
And that I mean, you are not alone. And this was years ago, but I recently started to use Epsom salts. I knew it was some sort of magnesium, but I didn't know which type it was. And it truly works, and that's what matters. Don't worry.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm a big proponent of Epsom salt baths. Whether you use that or a lot of people will add like essential oils to add some additional aromatherapy effects. But Epsom salt baths for athletes, big plus. As you can tell, magnesium you can be short in. This is just an all around great thing to do for your body. I will mention that magnesium sulfate can be taken orally, but it causes a laxative effect. So if you're going to do magnesium sulfate, stick with an Epsom salt bath.
Yep.
Yeah. The last one I want to touch on, and this one is definitely really interesting and I like, is magnesium malate. And it is often used to relieve headaches. It works also as a laxative and an acid, and it can help with energy productions in cells. So it can be helpful for athletes with energy metabolism or somebody kind of having headaches. Oftentimes, headaches can be triggered due to low magnesium levels. So supplementing with magnesium for headaches may be a step, and one would recommend a magnesium malate. So, like I said, the high intake of magnesium from dietary supplements and medications can cause diarrhea, nausea, and abdominal cramping. Extremely high levels of magnesium can lead to irregular heartbeat, even cardiac arrest, according to the National Institutes of Health. So, again, more is not always better in this case. And also knowing what form you're taking and what that form may cause can also affect your reaction. So, again, magnesium citrate may not be something you want to take before a game. Just throwing that out there.
Yep.
um, as food, so magnesium can be replenished in your food. And some of my favorite magnesium rich foods include lots of like seeds and nuts. So pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, Brazil nuts are one of the highest, almonds, peanuts, cashews. Um, then you've got like shredded wheat, soy milk, salmon, avocados, bananas, and tofu. So you
Yep.
can consider any of those, all of those your favorite? Any of those your favorite?
Yummy.
Yummy. I know a lot of people that use like Brazil nuts and they eat like 3 or 4 in the morning to help get their magnesium levels. So I've definitely seen that trend of using handfuls of nuts to both help you feel full because of the healthy fats in there, but also providing some micronutrients too.
Yep.
You can also consider post-workout beverages to help replenish all your electrolytes at once. Many of the electrolyte packets out there do contain magnesium, but it would be something you'd want to look at. How much does it contain? Because you may still need additional supplementation. So now that we've covered magnesium, our iron is our next nutrient up. And this deficiency is very common, particularly in our female athletes. So Neilham, you want to dive into some iron?
Yes, that's perfect. Just finished the course about iron depletion and
Oh,
managing iron in athletes. So I'm really happy that I'll be covering a topic with my recent.
share
So
your knowledge with all
yes,
of us.
let's share and expand the knowledge. So iron is a necessary micronutrient and ingredient in hemoglobin, myoglobin. These are some important function cells in our body working in the exchange cycle of oxygen from your blood to your muscles. And if you have low iron levels, you aren't efficient in oxygenating your body tissues, so they can't function optimally. It's vital for our oxygen is vital for our life. Hence iron. There are some factors places athletes at risk of iron deficiency. First is inadequate supply of dietary iron. Athletes who avoid meat have difficulty meeting their body's iron needs, and plant-based resources are not very helpful, and we are going to come to that. Increased demands for iron in such cases, such as heart training, because it stimulates an increase in red blood cell and blood vessel production, and it increases the demand for iron. And iron turnover is highest for endurance athletes training at high intensity. So we see if you're an endurance athlete, if you're female, then definitely get your iron checked. Then less blood flow happens to the GI tract, which I explained as part of the 101 today. And because less blood flow happens during the exercise, because all the blood flow is mostly directed to muscles, and this results in malabsorption of iron in our guts. So back to again leaky gut topic. Fourth one is muscle damage and oxidative stress through micro rupture of muscle fibers in our body. And fifth one is increased iron loss in sweat or urine. And then in sixth, higher hepcidin levels from body's inflammatory response that inhibit iron absorption. So hepcidin is another molecule in our body that work contrary to what we try to absorb from iron. So we have to keep hepcidin levels low. This is one of the major reasons why and when we take iron. And final point is high iron loss through blood loss through injury or menstruation. So hence female athletes. In endurance athletes, foot strike damage to red blood cells is really important. So every step you take on hard surfaces with poor quality shoes, this leads to iron loss. So you kind of explode one red blood cells. That's how they say every step. And finally, because of iron is lost in sweat, heavy sweaters lead to increased risk of deficiency. So
There's
I
a lot there to take
yeah,
in as to why we're low in iron.
yeah, I marked many of them, and again, maybe too many personal references here, but again, I just got a blood test and I'm low in iron as a male endurance athlete, more or less.
Yeah, super
So
impactful for people. If
yeah,
you're, I guess, if you're, whenever you go to the doctor, especially a female athlete, always ask for your iron to be checked.
exactly. Exactly.
Yes.
And the symptoms of iron deficiency includes loss of endurance, chronic fatigue, high exercise heart rate, low power, frequent injury, recurring illness, loss of interest in exercise, and irritability, so mood changes as well. Other symptoms include poor appetite, increased incidence and durations of colds and infections, so you get more susceptible to diseases. Is very vital. Iron is really vital. And many of these symptoms are also common to overtraining. So a misdiagnosis is common. Are you overtrained or are you iron deficient? The only way to understand the reality is getting a blood test. And the good news is you can easily test your body's iron stores through a blood test. It's very common. The recommended daily amount for women and teenagers is 18 milligrams per day, and women needs more, females needs more. That's why men should consume 8 milligrams compared to females. And endurance athletes may need slightly more. You can get iron in both animal and plant foods, but iron in animal sources has a higher absorption rate, about 20-30%. And with plant-based sources of iron, the absorption rate goes down to 10%. So if you are a vegan, vegetarian athlete, female and endurance athlete, then certainly you will get an iron deficiency.
Yeah.
Meet your iron needs. Try to include high iron foods at every meal if you can, especially you are choosing animal-based foods like such as red meat, chicken, and fish. Plant-based foods includes beans, cereals that contain iron, like iron fortified foods, but they are less readily absorbed, as I just mentioned. How you can increase the iron absorption with vitamin C as possible. If you eat high iron foods together with vitamin C containing foods such as strawberries, citrus, bell peppers, tomatoes, the absorption rate is going to increase. So we usually recommend getting your iron supplement together with, for example, an orange juice. Calcium and zinc also reduces the ability of the body to absorb iron. So you should avoid dairy products when eating iron-rich foods or if you're taking an iron supplement. I also learned from sorry for interrupting, I also learned from the recent classes, nuts can also decrease sometimes the iron absorption. So if you are using non-dairy milk, nut-based milk, for example, like cashew milk or nut milk, that also has a risk to decrease the iron absorption. So there has to be a good balance here for what you eat, when to take iron, and your sports pharmacist can help you and assist you with.
Yeah. I was going to say that can be pretty like eat this, not this, with this, not that can be very tricky. So definitely sitting down if you're an athlete that's low on iron or been told you're iron deficient, that is definitely really important to sit down with a sports pharmacist, nutritionist, healthcare provider to discuss like supplements and foods and how everything plays a role together, because you can see it's not just supplements, it can be just food, and food interactions can impair the iron absorption. So I think that's really important that you highlighted that. Thanks, Nilham.
Exactly.
I read an interesting study about iron supplementation and it helping with the performance marker VO2 max. And being a volleyball player, I kind of came across this study, and it was just a small one. It had 37 female volleyball players, and 17 of them were categorized as having latent iron deficiency, and 20 others had iron deficiency anemia. Showed that daily iron supplementation over a period of 2 months created a small but significant or statistically significant improvement in their VO2 max in the iron deficient group, but not in those at risk for iron deficiency. So it was just interesting to show that the supplementation can help. And another study of female rowers noted the improvement in performance in those who identified as having low iron, to have supplements to replace their iron levels. So I think it's just important to know that iron supplementation can help, and it can help pretty quickly in a period of as little as 2 months in improving um, performance markers.
Yeah, definitely. And whenever I mean, we recommend female athletes to get yearly iron panel to check their levels. But if you are interested or if you have iron deficiency, before adding iron to your supplement routine, you should definitely work in consultation with a healthcare professional, either your physician or your sports pharmacist, your pharmacist, because iron may cause damage to your liver if used without caution, without supervision. So always get your blood tested, work with an healthcare professional if you will need to include iron supplementation to your routine.
Yeah.
So that wraps up iron. And last but not least, our final nutrient is zinc, Jess. Over to
Yay.
you.
We're going to end on our final one. I feel like zinc is fitting. It's the end of the alphabet. So we're going to end with Z. But zinc is critical for our health, especially athletes who lose zinc through physical exertion. Therefore, regular training increases our need for zinc, which, as studies have shown, cannot be fully consumed through diet alone. So zinc, it's involved in numerous energy processes, especially during sport and athletic activities. Zinc also strengthens our immune system. It supports wound healing, and it's involved in the formation of hair, skin, and nails. Everything important to an athlete. It is also acts as an antioxidant in the body and is in critical demand for women during pregnancy. So, female pregnant athletes, please take note. You do have a higher increase demand for zinc, and it may be something you want to talk to your healthcare provider about because you do need a much higher level of zinc. Athletes are susceptible to diseases of the upper respiratory tract due to stress during exercise. This results from a weakened immune system, particularly in the first 24 hours after exercise. This effect is also called, some people call it the open window effect, and it arises from our immune cells being busy, basically mopping up cells set free by the micro injuries to our muscles that occur during exercise. In addition, the stress hormone cortisol in our body produced from exercise dampens our immune response. All this opens a window, we'll call it, for pathogens of all kinds to leave us susceptible to infection.
It's a sad story.
I was like, now we know we do have a personal story on this one.
As a sad story, it's exactly what has happened to me after running my first 10K. I think I got some virus when I was traveling and I was pretty fine. And after doing my 10K, the day after, I was sick and took for some time for me to rest and get back to my feet. But this happened to me, and open window effect is such a positive term. I would call it something else.
Yeah, that's how it was referred to in literature. I would definitely have, I know usually after competitions and traveling, I get sick, and it's always like, I don't know if I'd call it open window, but it does make sense. Like your body is open and everything can come in, including pathogens. And because of the hard, intense exercise and your body trying to heal itself from the exercise, but also from the cortisol, I think that how that it plays together is really intriguing, but it does speak to the benefits of exercise, but also how you really need to be as an athlete very conscious of allowing your body to recover too.
Exactly.
So we're going to say this open window effect, very positive uh, wording, let's put it that way, is it's something that it occurs all year round. It's not just only in the winter. It's not only in the summer. It's any time that you're doing intense exercise. Um, but however, due to our higher risk of vitamin D deficiency and an already strained immune system from training, this may be even more pronounced in cold months. So as we start entering winter, this may be something you want to be more cautious of. Unfortunately, we cannot close this window completely, but an adequate supply of nutrients such as zinc, vitamin D, all of our micronutrients is important to helping us minimize the impacts of this open window effect. Zinc strengthens our immune system, generally supports athletic performance, and causes quicker physical regeneration. Additionally, there has been shown to be some antidepressant properties of zinc as well, which I find really interesting.
About zinc's immune system benefits, I read a meta-analysis in a study about dissolving zinc lozenges in the mouth,
Oh,
reducing upper respiratory tract illnesses duration by around 3 days. If these lozenges are taken 24 hours after the onset of the symptoms, and of course duration of the illness. So this means, like, and you realize that you are having upper respiratory tract illnesses, as soon as you notice it, if you are fast enough, start getting zinc lozenges, and then this can help decreasing the illness duration. So this may be very helpful approach for athletes. Of course, the dose and the duration is still needs a proper study, but it's worth a try. Just getting zinc in a lozenge format, in a dosage form.
yeah.
And, uh,
Something easy to carry in your bag too if you
exactly,
needed to.
exactly. Yeah. So during cold winter days, if you are more susceptible to diseases, especially endurance athletes, I guess, they may benefit from zinc in such.
Yeah. I would say besides zinc and on to kind of body's defenses while we're on that, we also need, as we talked about, a sufficient supply of magnesium and iron.
Yeah.
Studies have also shown glutamine as very important for athletes and probiotics, all to help strengthen our immune system. So you can see there's multiple angles here at making sure, I think vitamin D can be added in there too, to making sure that we have a healthy immune system so that we can continue to exercise and keep our body as strong as possible. During physical exertion, so our body loses zinc through sweat and increased metabolism. So regular training therefore requires an increased zinc intake. And a recent study with 14,000 participants showed that athletes have significantly lower zinc levels in their bloodstream than non-athletes.
Mhm.
And I found that really interesting. So definitely speaks to needing additional supplementation possibly. And in New Zealand, they looked at the connection of zinc levels with physical exercise. Also, they looked at about 900, just over 900 athletes, and found that consuming 14 milligrams of zinc was definitely beneficial. Nevertheless, athletic activities, like we talked about, lower serum zinc levels below those of the inactive group in this study. And this points to an increased requirement for zinc in athletes. As a result of the study, researchers in New Zealand recommended including a low dose zinc supplement in addition to a balanced diet to ensure adequate levels of zinc in their athletes.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So definitely something most people need to consider.
Mhm.
But food alone, I think zinc is one of those hard ones to get enough from food. I do want to touch on some of the main sources of zinc, and they come from animal products such as meat,
Mhm.
milk, fish, oysters, and eggs. But thankfully, there are non meat containing products such as dark chocolate. So I'm pretty sure I may get enough zinc by my intake of dark chocolate. Spinach, nuts, and oatmeal also offer a good supply of zinc. And as I said, because a lot of it is found in meat sources, vegan and vegetarian should also pay close attention to your zinc levels. So, like we said, researchers do recommend regular but low levels of zinc supplementations in athletes, and sufficient levels of zinc may not only improve performance, but they may help your body recover faster and strengthen your immune system. And I do want to take caution about zinc supplementation also, because more, again, is not better. And you want to look up all your kind of supplements that may contain zinc products, because high doses of zinc, more than 75 or more than 50 to 75 milligrams per day, can interfere with the absorption of iron and other minerals, leading to possibly iron deficiency and deficiency of other minerals and or suboptimal levels.
Yeah,
So
that
a
is
lot of stuff to think about here.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but that is really, really important, especially for one fact. If you are taking, for example, a multivitamin, and if you are taking some sort of pre-workout at the same time, and I don't know if you are using some supplement for your hair, you're gonna see everything has zinc in it at certain amounts, and if you calculate it, then you may be exceeding the dose. So that's why I usually don't recommend people to take supplements with a lot of ingredients, because then the dosing would be difficult to manage, and
Yeah.
that's what athletes should be taking care of, and basically read the label. That's what I can recommend. But let's remember a few key things why athlete needs to understand and manage their micronutrient depletions, inadequate energy availability or macronutrient intake, carbs, protein, fats, is needed for energy expenditure associated with exercise is commonly reported. So they don't match the energy need through the macronutrients, especially in female population, and this can also result in micronutrient deficiencies as well. So if you're not eating enough, this may be the result. That's the main reason that you should take a in-depth look into your micronutrient needs. And we see the current literature, although it's limited, reports that athletes' knowledge regarding adequate macronutrient and micronutrient intake and needed supplementation is lacking. So this episode is hopefully be helpful for educating, empowering athletes to understand how much, when, which one to take. Of course, it's much more beyond that, but maybe this is got foundational knowledge for you here. And correction of deficiencies via supplementation may be needed to restore your physiologic processes, but may not lead to improved performance all the same at the same time. So you have to be healthy in the beginning. So that's really important.
Yeah.
That's why athletes and coaches should be aware of these issues. They should work together with sports pharmacists, with healthcare providers, or specialist nutritionists to improve nutrition knowledge and determine if the athlete is at risk for low energy availability or nutritional deficiencies. So we would like to have more informed, educated, empowered athletes as a result of today's episode.
I hope that today's episode gave everyone a greater insight into the nutrients to look for and to monitor, either as an athlete or a healthcare provider working with athletes. I feel like this episode gave tremendous amount of information. I hope that you found it beneficial, and that athletes of will all have different nutritional needs compared to the general public. In addition to consuming sufficient amounts of calories and macronutrients, athletes may also be required more vitamins, minerals, and other nutrients for peak performance and recovery. So, definitely a specialty here to work with athletes and understanding the nuances of athletic performance, both in the type of performance and male and female, and athletic goals. So, as sports pharmacists, our mission is to provide accurate and evidence based information to optimize your health and your performance. When it comes to your health and well being choices, consult your physician or pharmacist, prioritize safety, and always make informed decisions. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing more valuable scientific and actionable insight in our next episode.